Hi everybody, John Osmond here again from ProDB Developers, and I'm on my fourth video of this series, and I'm about ready to start the first part of the MVVM pattern, which is creating the models. Now what a model is basically a wrapper, a code wrapper for a table. It could be for a view as well, but most commonly for a wrapper. So I'm going to wrap each one of these tables in a model. Okay, each gets their own model. So the way I do that is I go to my file system, and here I am in the demo project. Let me get myself out of the way there. Here I am in the demo project, and in all these folders, remember the data access is down here at the bottom. This is where we're at folder-wise, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to make some models. All right, and what I'm doing now is very similar to doing query builders as well. You have a choice of either doing it with ADO or DAO. All right, so let me go into this models file here. And right now it's almost empty except I have one module in there for tests. And I can open that up and show you that there's nothing in it just yet. I'm going to write a test here in a minute. But before I do that, I'm going to go and I'm going to show you an add-in that I built. I've built several add-ins. All of these are my own add-ins that I've built myself. And the one I'm going to show you today is Model Maker. So what happens is you tell it what the name of your server is. Now mine is, I'm on this desktop, so that's the name of the server. If I go back to SQL Server, you can see that's the instance up there. So this has to match the first thing you enter right here. And it also has memory, so the reason it was there waiting for me is because the last time I used it, I put that in, but then I close it and reopen it, and it remembers what I put in there last. All right, so I have that, and I have it selected. I click on Get Available Databases, and it reads the SQL Server and shows me what's available. I'm going to select the development database, and I'm going to say Get Available Tables and Views. All right, so this is what's available, including the schema, as you see that. That's very important. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to say Create Models, this button down here. And what it does is it writes code for me. It creates class module. Each class module matches a table that we selected on SQL Server. Now, you can't do dots in VBA as far as naming the modules, so the dots get replaced with underscores. So you can see those modules back here in the, let me close this out. Here they are right here, cust underscore and then the table name. And then you also have oh yeah, the phone types list and the address types list are also in there in the customer schema, even though they don't have the word customers in their name. But it's all here. So let's go ahead and look at one. Let's look at the customers. What each one of these is you get a property for each of the fields that are in the table. So like the table has an ID field, and there's a property for it. It has a customer name field, here's a property for it. It has a default address ID field. If I go into the one for, let's say, contacts, down here is the different fields that match the fields in those tables. They, in addition to that, they match the fields, no, not in that diagram, in this diagram. See, first name, last name, contact name. If something is nullable, you'll be dealing with a variant data type. And if it's not nullable, you'll be dealing with either a long or a string or something like that. And in addition to that, you also have kind of query building type of properties, and I'll show you how to use these in just a moment. There's also a model base class, so all of these classes use things that are in here for connecting to the database. So I'm trying to follow the DRY principle of don't repeat yourself. Instead of writing all this code in each one of these classes has a, let me go to the top here, see, a model base class for it to use. Okay, so let me do a couple of local tests, and then I'll get out and I'll do some external tests. So the way I would do this is sort of like test-driven design. I would create these tests, and especially the external ones, they become part of the artifacts. In other words, you keep the tests around even after you're done using them, because you might come back and change something someday, and you might say, you know what, we should run those tests again and make sure they all still work. So I might write something like this: test customers. Oh, I didn't do the word sub. Okay, so now I declare a variable, something like that. What I can do is I can say something like with ocusts dot open all, and then I can say I have an access to the record set object that's in there, and I can tell it I want you to move first. Actually, I should say if the record count is greater than 0, then .rst object .move first, and then I can go through a loop, do until .rst object .eof. You're probably familiar with this type of code. It's very common for looping through a record set, a set of records. So I might say something like debug.print .id and maybe .customer name. You see how I have access to these fields without having to remember what they are. They're now part of my IntelliSense. That's the whole point of doing this, really. Well, that's one of the points. You know, there are other. But see, this has not only all those query building objects in there, but it also has all the field lists. So, you know, the default address ID, the default contact ID, the ID itself, and of course the customer's name. That's the one I'm working on now. And then I could say .rst object .move next, and that forms a loop. And then I end the with, or end the if, and then I end the with. Okay, so now I'm going to save all that. Open my, oh no, actually the thing is there are no records just yet, so let me put in another clause here real quick. Okay, else debug.print, oh, there are no records. So that's what we should wind up getting this first time out. Okay, so I had to fix that. I didn't have that written quite correctly. So now if it doesn't find any records, it should debug that, and that's exactly what we should get if we run this code. Yeah, there are no records. Now if I go over there to the development database and I say edit top 200 rows, and I go ahead and put something in. Now ID is an auto number, so we'll just put in our own ProDB developers, and the default address ID. Well, these are nullable. You don't have to fill these in, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it at that for now because I don't have any addresses to put in there. But since I have a record in there, I should be able to see that record from the code. So if I go back over here and I just run the same exact test procedure, see now I get that ID of 1 and the name of the company. So I definitely have access to that record. And I can also have access to it in edit mode. In other words, I could change the name. I don't want to do that in this demonstration because these videos are getting a little too long. So I'm going to end that video right there. So what we did this time was we created some models and we tested one of them internally. What we also need to do though is do an external test. So I'll do that in the very next video. Thank you.